2, 1, and we are recording with Mr. Norman Oler, who is watching over his son in a hot tub on a roof. And so we got to keep this podcast short because I don't want Mr. Oler to not fulfill his parenting duties. So, but he is the author of Blitzed. And do you need to talk? Is there someone you're talking to?
Yeah, give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Go down. Damien Butman, 1 minute.
You're good. I'll introduce you. It's Mr. Norman Oler. He's the author of Blitzed, and it is in the top 10 favorite books of mine. And for everybody listening, I know I say that all the time, so I actually did put together a list of my top 10 favorite books. I'll read real quick. Top 10 favorite books of the guests I've had on the show in no particular order. Or Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, 2, Raven Rock, 3, Nuking the Moon, 4, Ghost, 5, Base Nation, 6, Generals Have No Clothes, 7, Blitzed, 8, How I Accidentally Started the 60s, 9, Lone Operator, 10, American Badass. Those are all guests I've had on the show. Those are in my top 10. But Mr. Oler has to keep it short today because he just showed me they have a little hot tub, which looks like you're on a roof in a city. And
yeah, in Berlin.
Berlin, yeah, he's on a rooftop in Berlin. And so as you said, there's not much to say. I wanted to have you back on because I have sent your book Blitz to so many people. I had lunch with my parents 2 days ago, and I literally brought it up at lunch, and I was like, have you guys listened to this yet? And so I'm pushing it on everyone.
Good.
But I can't stop listening to it because it has wildly reshaped my perceptions of World War II, unlike any other book ever has. But before we do that, I wanted to say, I got to give credit where credit's due. You predicted the future. On the second podcast we did, at the end of it, you looked at me and you said, how do you feel about the elections? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And you said, do you think there's going to be a riot when Trump loses and refuses to leave the White House? And that is exactly what happened. So you predicted you predicted the future.
We will predict today.
I know. So going back through your book, I still have to jump on what we kind of left on last time. And you, in a brief sentence, you kind of throw out that the SS, its whole formulation was based on the rituals of alcohol, and there is enough in that for a second book. And then you kind of left it at that. And so I'm gonna put you on the spot again. I have to ask you, are you gonna do another book about alcohol and its rise in the Third Reich, as opposed to just Tador Morell, the generals, Blitzed, cocaine, Pervitin, Eucadol?
Well, I think that there is a book. Have you never heard of it?
No,
maybe there's not a book.
I don't think there is,
because I get a lot of requests for blurbing books, and I thought there was a book that someone sent to me about Nazis and alcohol.
I actually spent a couple hours the other day trying to find books similar to yours, and I found one, and I think it was something about the high. It was about like cocaine and like ancient wars, but I couldn't find anything similar. And to me, Blitzed is in a perfect universe. Blitzed is the second book in a trilogy by Mr. Oler, and the first would be Alcohol and the Rise of the Reich, and the third would be the transfer of the psychedelic experimentation they did in the concentration camps to Fort Detrick with MK Ultra.
But let's talk about the third book.
Sure.
Who would be the main character?
You know, you would have to go in. I mean, we know there's MK Ultra. We know they have Midnight Climax, where they kidnapped American citizens in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, there's this guy. What's his name? The chief poisoner in chief.
Well, there's James Jesus Angleton, who's the head of counterintelligence, and he was very interested in using LSD to break double agents. Who is the doctor? The doctor that was.
There's Gottlieb. You have Gottlieb. Sidney Gottlieb, he was the head of MK Ultra.
And there was a doctor, wasn't there, that was thrown out of a window, thrown by the CIA?
Oh, that's Olson.
Yeah, Frank Olson, right?
Frank Olson, yeah.
There is, so yeah. Well, let's put aside the first book for now. The third book, everyone knows it's kind of become mainstream knowledge, right? Operation Paperclip. We brought back the rocket scientists, go to the moon.
Boring.
Yeah, it's boring. It's been hashed to pieces. Okay, yeah, I get it. We went to the moon. Okay, right. Lesser known is Unit 731 from Japan. All the bioweapons engineers. Okay, sure. It's still kind of sexy. Not a little less is known about it. Almost nothing is known about the the birth of MK Ultra in Germany, or the predecessor to it. You know, we kind of, the tale that's woven is LSD, Sandal's laboratories, and the CIA decided to interrogate people. But no, this was the research. It wasn't formulated in the United States. It was continued from the
Mm.
work in concentration camps, where they gave peyote to victims in the concentration camp.
So you think that's new?
I do. As someone
Okay.
that does listen to audiobooks all day, every day, I have I try to find the nuggets of information, because, you know, you listen to so many books, stuff starts to overlap. I always
Yeah,
try to pick out the nuggets that I hadn't heard before.
yeah,
And that's one reason I love Blitz so much, is the whole thing is new to me. But
yeah.
towards the end, even D9, I'd watched a documentary and I'd heard about D9 and the missile
Really?
nubs. It was very briefly, and it was only about 2 years ago. I was at my grandma's house. I was looking after her. She was in her later years, and it's like 2 in the morning, and I was watching, and I remember them showing the tracks where they'd walk, and I was like, "What the
Okay.
fuck?" I was like, "What the fuck is this?" But I
That
had
was
never.
probably based on Blitzed, from
Yeah,
what you said.
it probably was, you're right. Sorry, I know I'm talking nonstop. I get excited when I talk to you.
Nice.
Is
No, I mean, I have been researching actually. I haven't told you this, but
Yeah.
because but I have been looking. I think that the origins actually are what is most interesting. Where does MK Ultra actually come from, and what are actually the origins of LSD? But I'm still in the researching phase. And I mean, I was already researching this when we spoke, but I couldn't
Mhm.
really talk about it.
I
And I
know.
still can't really open up about it because I'm still researching. But I have to hand in the book next summer, so it's going to come out in the US in 23. Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's You're
I only
killing
have
me.
one problem, which is I need to go to a couple of archives. And at the moment, for example, the National Archives of the United States are still closed due to the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
So let's hope that those places of research are going to open up soon. I mean,
I
where are you based?
I am in Maryland. I'm about an hour and a half, 2 hours from DC. I'm not that far. I will happily do the legwork for you. I wonder if they let me go in, because I don't know if I just show up every day.
At the moment, the research room is closed. Have
Yeah.
you been to College Park?
I have.
I think that is in Maryland, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, my little brother went to the University of Maryland. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's yeah, University of Maryland. There's a whole bunch of creepy stuff there, right? The NSA
Yeah.
had some headquarters there that no one knew about for like 40 years. It's
Mm,
all cloak and dagger shit.
mm,
But I remember I asked you about this during our last podcast, and I remember you said I can't tell you about it. So
mm,
I'm glad you told me about it. But to me, that is because alcohol and the rise of the Third Reich, I think, would be, but that might be just me as a fan of your work. I might be more interested in that than the average person. I think a third book about the origins
mm,
of MK Ultra, I think that could
mm.
be on par with Blitzed. And if you did it right, you might even surpass it. I think it could be.
You think so?
I do, because so let's look at alcohol, right? Alcohol
I
is
just send you a link for the alcohol book
okay.
because there is a book, but
Okay.
once you've listened to it, you can tell me if it's any good.
Okay. Cornell Press, Drunk on Genocide. All right, let me take a screenshot of that. I'll make a note of that. Um, but so with alcohol and the rise of the Third Reich, it's sure, like, it's intense, it's crazy, but it's alcohol, right? It's
Yeah,
alcohol. You have alcohol on a Friday night, whatever. It's
yeah.
blitzed is crazy because it's not just Adolf Hitler in World War II, but it's also, I mean, he's shooting up like bulls' testicles, and they're eating like
Mm,
blood dried with vegetables, and taking cocaine and
mm.
Eucadol and popping Pervitin and D9 and all this crazy shit. I think, and it's absurd because the rise of alcohol with the Third Reich, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? It's a bunch of rowdy guys drinking, being assholes. It's not really new territory.
Yeah.
with Blitzed, it's so crazy because it's the highest echelons of it's the highest echelon of the German government, and these drugs that are insane. I think I do
Mm,
think that you could surpass Blitzed because, much like you say, uh, how Hitler always had to up the dose, and not
mm,
just with drugs, including penetrating sovereign nations' borders.
mm,
In a way, there's sort of this meta theme where you're upping the dose again from your books. So we go from
mm,
cocaine, Eucadol, but everyone's maybe I haven't done cocaine, but I've taken stimulants. I still kind of know what they are, right? You could up the
mm.
dose again, peyote, DMT,
Yeah,
LSD, and how do you get sexier than Hitler and Bormann? You go to the
mm,
CIA, you go to MK Ultra, you go to the Cold War, you go
mm,
to Manchurian candidates, you go to all
mm.
sorts of shit. What is on the end? It's I mean, you could yeah, I mean, you could branch off into all of that. The Korean War, right? We were afraid that they were doing brainwashing. That's when that word entered the US lexicon. I think you
Yeah, but
could.
listen, you know all these things already, so why do you need to read it in a book?
I know them. That is the extent of what I know. Like what I
Mm,
just said is the extent
mm,
of what I know.
mm,
There's not a whole lot. I know about Midnight Climax, and I know
mm,
about even I've had on Jefferson Morley, author of The Ghost, about James Jesus Angleton. Even there, I mean,
mm,
there's maybe a handful of sentences, and it's all loose. Like
mm,
I had known Hitler did drugs. Like I had known
mm.
that as like a loose factoid.
Yeah, yeah,
You fleshed it out,
yeah, yeah.
and
No, I mean the topic's very interesting. It's just very difficult to write because it's so big,
yeah,
and I have to find the right characters. I'm still struggling because the
yeah.
book also has to be. I don't know. Blitz has two major narratives, which is the methamphetamine for the army and Hitler doing drugs. So you have a main character basically who is Hitler,
Mhm.
which is a great main character
Yeah.
because he's so famous.
Yeah.
Um, and he carries you through the whole story. So I'm still trying to structure the book.
Sure, yeah,
In the middle of working actually.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
I
you've
have
got
one more year to go.
it's gonna be aw well, I mean, I think if it was easy to research, it probably wouldn't be a good book. It's the same
Yeah.
reason I push Blitzed on everyone.
Hmm.
I'm like, everyone knows about Hitler, D-Day and the bomb, August 6th, August 9th, Eisenhower. Yeah, we get it. Yours fleshes it out to I never knew about like the ampules and the train car stopping so he could get an injection and the anti-aircraft guns come out. It's
Hmm.
you fleshed it out. So
Yeah. Hmm.
again, what you said about going to the archives, it's like
Hmm.
skipping a stone across the top of a pond.
Yeah.
You, full immersion isn't possible because it was 75 years ago.
Hmm.
But the extent to which you did it is for the subjective listener like myself, that was full immersion.
Hmm.
So I think it's
Yeah.
only good that it's difficult for you to research because that means you're going down into the pond of history and you're pulling up the stones and you can bring them out to all of us.
So what's the reputation of LSD nowadays in the US? People are
Of
still using it, or is it coming back, or?
I think it's making a comeback.
Hmm.
It's well, it's kind of becoming acceptable now. In actually, Maryland is or DC is one of them, but Colorado, California, Oregon, they're decriminalizing psilocybin. They're decriminalizing, I believe, LSD. I don't think it's outright legal yet,
Hmm.
but it has, at least in my experiences, it has it's moved from the shadows of the taboo into it's kind of becoming like a thing again where people do it and it's not this
Hmm.
weird, oh, you're a hippie out in a van. It's just
Yeah, right. It's
yeah.
becoming more mainstream maybe now.
Yeah, and
It's
I
also being discovered for research, for science, for medical research.
yeah, well, in a good way, now they're using it for mental illness instead of the
Yeah.
CIA trying to break people's
Mm,
brains, but
yeah.
I think that's where you come in. I think you
Yeah.
illuminate it all.
I will.
I know you will because you're a badass author. I cannot stress it enough. Your book, Blitzed, Drugs in the Third Reich, also Bohemians, the story of Haho Shoots a Poison, which is inspiring.
Mm.
That's an inspiring book. Blitzed is just a jaw on the floor book. I still listen to it and I still find things in it that
Mm.
make me just shake my head. The amount of shit just it's like the way you describe it at the end when he's going through withdrawals and he's reaching for the last little bits of dopamine, sugar, a hot bath. He can't not have the exogenous pleasure coming in, and it just breaks down into nothingness. And I mean, your book is simultaneously the biggest advocate for drug use and the biggest aversion to drug use at the same time. It's do it and don't do it.
Can you
I,
see this as a movie or as a TV series?
oh fuck yeah, dude! Are you kidding me?
What do you think is better?
I think if you did a series,
Yeah.
no movies aren't my generation. We don't take in movies anymore. If you did like a one season Netflix series, like
Mm.
Chernobyl on HBO,
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do right now.
oh my god, I would I would lose my mind. I would freak out. I would freak out. You would probably have to block my email because I would be like, Mr. Holler, and you'd be like, Tommy, stop talking to me.
You think it
It's
would be popular?
oh my god. Oh my god. It's like I don't consider your book a book in the way that I listen to like a 30-hour autobiography of FDR. Your book
Mm.
is it's sexy. You can't put it down.
Mm.
Everything is just so crazy. There's no fluff. You don't
Mm.
you don't get out into the weeds. It's just I mean it's kind of like the Blitzkrieg. Your book just one after the other, just bam, bam, bam. It starts with Berlin, Berlin, take a
Mm.
breath, your dance partner's death. The actress who would dip flower petals in ether and chloroform and then suck them dry. And it's to Pervitin, to the guys at night, and like the moon is too bright. The whole thing is just, and then it escalates to D9 and throwing kids in these submarines and they're awake for 7 days. Otto
Mm.
Skorzeny, and then it finishes with MK Ultra and then kind of
Mm.
fizzles off. And to me, you left the breadcrumbs to where I think you have to do an MK Ultra book.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I have kept you for 2 minutes longer than the 15 minutes. I know you're watching your kids. I also know that much like Hitler meeting with Mussolini, I just talked you into submission for
Oh,
15
that's
minutes.
good. That's good because today I was happy not to say so much because I'm in the middle of working, but I'm happy
Yeah.
to speak again in a couple of months.
Absolutely, man. Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Oler, thank you so much for your time, sir. I cannot, guys, I can't fake my excitement. I love Blitzed. It is, if you listen to it, it will put everything, it will put Dunkirk, it will put Operation Barbarossa, it'll put it all into light that, I mean, it's finding out a missing puzzle piece, and all of a sudden, the rest of the story makes sense. It's 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 like discovering the instruction manual for a weird desk, and you go, "Oh, okay, I get it now." It's to me, it painted the picture because otherwise, Hitler's just an enigma, and I think you shed a lot of light onto that mystery. But I have now kept you for 18 and a half minutes, and I'm not going to shut up because I enjoy talking to you too much. So, Mr. Norman Oler, I will email you. I will happily have you back on any day you want. I would
All
love to
right.
talk about your next book.
All right. Thank
Thank you,
you,
sir.
Tommy.
Thank you, my man. Take care and
Have
good
a
luck
great
working.
weekend.
You as well. Thank you, sir.